issue of nature is a complex one. You know, it's a very Western notion to have this idea that nature is this kind of environment external to societies.
So we are here to question and to debate and to challenge, and hopefully to work towards some possible alternatives to the ways that the problem of climate or environmental change and its solutions are currently articulated. To try and present a vision or visions of what a green economy or society would look like.
The northern countries still have by far the greatest emissions per head of the population, and there's a real battle going on over different paths of development in these countries and in the role of emissions.
I haven't heard anything about the transition in the industrialized countries and reduction of emissions, only about offsets. Only about how to learn and how to make the low, so-called low carbon economy in the south, but not in the north.
That at the moment we have a risk that what one of my geographer colleagues has called zombie neoliberalism, the survival of the undead, that zombie neoliberalism has been colonizing the Green New Deal and inflecting it into a nothing green strategy. One example of that is the ways in which nature's labour power, its flow of natural services, is being registered in preparation for its commodification.
How did we come to live in a material world, as Madonna put it, and what are the roots of our consumer society?
Consumption, similarly, these are choices that we make both in our homes, in communities, and as nations.
But we don't wake up in the morning saying, I'd like to consume some resources today. We go about our everyday lives and everyday activities, and therefore consumption is really fundamentally a part of social life.
So corporate social responsibility agendas, fair trade, green consumerism, reinforced through sort of labeling schemes in the north. All of these actually have a very powerful effect on changing behaviors, changing patterns of consumer behavior. They can, perhaps at the margin, but they certainly can have the effect of increasing the bargaining power of small producers in global market.
If, for instance, China, Brazil, and the OECD countries reduce their meat consumption to half, it would save not only grain, but also the land on which the grain is produced. And it could move us towards food security.
There are various alternatives stemming from, extreme left to extreme right.
One is leaving fossil fuels in the ground and investing in renewable energy. Secondly is reducing consumption, principally in the north, but also by southern elites. Financial transfers based on the repayment of climate debt and subject to democratic control to cover costs of adaptation and mitigation in the south. And all policy should be based on rights-based resource conservation that's based on indigenous rights, land rights, and so on. And finally, as sort of systemic alternatives, that people's energy sovereignty, food sovereignty, and so on should be the basis of a new economic, ecological, and social framework.
One way to read the Green New Deal is in terms of no growth. Capital should be possessed by co-ops, that the enterprise form should be one based on solidarity, a very strong low-carbon wage relation, a solidarity economy oriented to allocative and distributive justice, embedded cooperation, flexicurity, local and slow rather than hypermobile, super-fast circulation of money capital, an orientation to no growth or slow growth, and so forth.
I will be talking about the Deccan Development Society as an example, trying to show that the alternatives are possible within the capitalist mode of production. So the Deccan Development Society was established in 1983 in the Telangana region of Andhra Pradesh. It was established by deep professionalized intellectuals, and particularly working with Dalit women, the so-called untouchables, trying to construct an alternative model of development and also trying to build solidarity movements. So they started with food security first and then moved from the food security to food sovereignty. If you don't control seed, you can't control agriculture, right? In most of the villages they have community-based seed banks, and they had achieved food security and seed security, and now every woman in their villages are seeing themselves as a seed bank. enhanced their particularly Dalit women's bargaining power in the community. More importantly, they re-established a sustainable relationship between farming community and nature. They are not just peasants working with the mud, but they are organic subaltern intellectuals who has been trying to produce and reproduce knowledge systems.
So this one is about restoring and relocalizing. It's a 10-year grassroots project in the state of Minas Gerais, which combats social exclusion with the dissemination of agroecological practices among poor small-scale farmers to restore soil fertility while increasing and diversifying their production, thus providing viable economic alternatives to out-migration. This project helps people to go out of being dependent, of being poor, of being recipients of aid, to actually being sellers of their own produce at the town market. The human is quite at the center, but the human is at the center in a way that is not anthropocentric. And it is from this that a new ethics developed in which the environment became an important part. In Latin America, alternative projects are also networking more informally and are proposing things that then can become excellent models.
These organisations are very firmly based in the local, very embedded in social realities. Their perspective is definitely global. That there is an analysis of the relationships that exist from the local right through to the global, the ways in which institutions work, the ways in which policies impact on their realities.
So I see social economy an integrated approach to understand society-nature relationships, and I think social economy as a model is a sustainable model to go forward.
There are serious, well thought through, globally coherent alternatives coming from the ground, but they're not given any resources, they're not given any institutional backing, they're not given political legitimacy. I think one way for systemic alternatives to emerge is for them to be taken seriously.
Climate change changes everything, and I think that's my main message to the Rio Plus 20. We need critical social science research that not only integrates the social into ongoing development or into mainstreaming the issues, but that questions what the social means in the era of climate change, and that questions what development means and should mean from now and onwards.
We need to contribute to a vision not just of what a green economy would look like, but of what kind of society we envision.
We must focus on understanding what drives commitment to action in the international negotiations, at the community level, in national adaptation strategies. We have to understand what is driving the take-up of action.
We need new visions about what is progress, what is well-being, what is quality of life, not only for the global south and for the poor that are the more vulnerable, but also in advanced economies for people in rich countries who can have a different identity themselves and can reframe what being progressive and what being an advanced economy means. And this leads also to change.
There are various alternatives. It's not just there's no alternative, but there are thousands of alternatives if you can and try it. And most importantly, these are the initiatives that create hope in sustainable way of living and sustainable way of maintaining society.